They walked around like they were some once-in-a-lifetime blessing, like you should have been grateful just to be in their presence. They acted like your affection was a luxury they allowed, not something they earned. They really believed you saw them as irreplaceable, and for a while you did until their actions taught you otherwise. They held this delusional confidence, thinking they were the main attraction in your story. They mistook your kindness for worship. They mistook your patience for dependence. They mistook your loyalty for blindness. They thought they were untouchable. They thought you'd always choose them. But people forget that quiet ones notice everything. The signs, the patterns, the disrespect, they all add up. And one day, without warning, your heart simply shut off. No argument, no explanation, no dramatic farewell. Just a clean shift from "I care" to "I don't." What shocked them wasn't that you left, it was how effortlessly you detached. One moment they were the center of your world, and the next they couldn't even get a crumb of your energy. That's what stung. That's what bruised their ego. That's what exposed how fragile they really were. You didn't yell. You didn't fight. You didn't plead. You didn't chase. You simply showed them their actual value by withdrawing yours. And suddenly their inflated importance deflated like cheap air. That's when reality slapped them harder than anything you could have said. Because the truth is, they weren't special. You just treated them better than they deserved. You just loved them in a way no one ever had. You just gave them grace they didn't earn. They confused the treatment for their worth, not realizing you were the reason they felt valuable at all. When you pulled back, they felt the emptiness immediately. They felt the void where your energy used to sit. They felt the silence that replaced your affection. And that silence carried a message louder than any revenge. You were never the prize I was. They thought you'd crumble without them, that you'd miss them, that you'd regret leaving. Instead, you flourished. You healed. You leveled up. You replaced them with peace, and peace fit you better than their chaos ever did. They looked around and saw how easily you rebuilt your life, how your glow didn't dim, how your world didn't fall apart. That's when the panic began. Because nothing is more insulting to someone who thinks they're everything than realizing they were nothing. You didn't need closure, they needed it. You weren't waiting for an apology, they were hoping for a chance. You weren't stuck in the past, they were stuck replaying every moment where they thought you were beneath them. Now they see the truth. You were never beneath them. You were beyond them. They thought losing you would hurt you. Instead, it exposed them. It showed how little they bring to the table. It showed how much they depended on your presence to feel important. It showed that the version of themselves they liked only existed in your eyes. You didn't destroy their ego, the truth did. The truth that while they were busy playing games, you were growing. While they were trying to lower your worth, you were discovering it. While they assumed they were unforgettable, you realized forgetting them was the easiest part. And now they're angry, confused, embarrassed, because you treated them like they mattered. And now you treat them like they're dust. That contrast shattered them. That shift woke them up. That coldness humbled them in ways life never managed to. They try to convince themselves you'll come back. They try to convince themselves you still care. They try to convince themselves they still have a chance. But deep down they know you saw through the illusion they created. And once you see someone clearly, you can't unsee it. The same person they once bragged about having wrapped around their finger now walks past them without a second glance. The same heart they took for granted now beats peacefully without them. The same soul they dismissed now shines brighter without their shadow. They didn't lose you by accident, they lost you by choice. Their disrespect turned you away. Their arrogance turned you off. Their selfishness pushed you to your limit. And the moment you reached it, you reclaimed everything they thought they owned. Your power, your peace, your future. Their biggest shock is realizing you were the one elevating them the whole time. Your presence made them feel special. Your love made them feel chosen. Your energy made them feel important. Without you, they're back to their original state: average, insecure, forgettable. They thought they were the treasure. Now they understand they were the burden. They thought you'd be devastated. Now they see you're liberated. They thought they held power. Now they realize they were the weak link all along. And the worst part, you didn't even have to expose them. Time did, distance did, silence did, your growth did. And now they sit there sick to their stomach because they finally see their true worth through your absence. What they considered losing you was really you returning to yourself. What they considered a breakup was you breaking free. What they considered a mistake you'd regret became a blessing you never questioned. Your silence became the final nail in the coffin of their ego. Your indifference became their punishment. Your peace became their reminder that they were never on your level. Not then, not now, not ever. And now wherever they go, whoever they meet, they'll remember one truth they can't escape. They weren't special, you just loved them like they were. And once that love ended, so did the illusion. Their downfall wasn't losing you, it was realizing they never deserved you in the first place. And nothing haunts a person more than recognizing the value they mistreated. So now they sit with the truth, bitter and humbled. Because you didn't ruin them, you simply removed yourself. And in doing so, you showed them exactly what they were, not shytt. They didn't expect you to heal this fast, this silently, this powerfully. They assumed you'd be stuck in the ruins they left behind, crawling through memories, trying to put the pieces back together. Instead, you stepped over the ruins and built an empire from what was supposed to break you. And when they saw that glow return to your face without their presence attached to it, they realized just how insignificant their role actually was. Their ego can't process the fact that you never chased them. You never begged. You never asked for explanations. You just walked away like someone who finally saw the truth. They expected drama, tears, emotional collapse. They expected to feel important by watching you fall apart. Instead, all they witnessed was their own irrelevance staring back at them in your calm exit. And now it's eating them alive. Because you didn't lose anything. They did. They lost the one person who gave them love, without them having to earn it. They lost the one person who saw goodness in them when they couldn't see it in themselves. They lost the one presence that elevated them. And worst of all, they lost you without a fight, because they weren't worth one. They keep replaying everything now, wondering which moment they could have saved, wondering where they slipped up, wondering why you didn't crumble, because deep down they know if they mattered the way they imagined, you would have stayed, but you didn't. And that truth keeps clawing at their mind in silence. They wanted to feel like a prize in your life, but losing you revealed just how much they relied on your validation to feel alive. You were the one holding them up, and once you stepped back, they collapsed into their natural state. Ordinary, insecure, exposed. Turns out, the special glow they bragged about was just your reflection shining on them. And the funniest part? They still think you're angry. They still think you're hurt. They still think you're healing. They don't realize you ended the chapter the moment they became a burden. Your heart didn't break. It simply closed its door and threw away the key. Not out of pain, but out of clarity. Your silence became their karma. Every day they wake up with the thought, what if they never come back? That fear sits in their chest like a weight they can't shake off. Because now they know you weren't attached, you were patient. And once that patience ran out, so did their relevance. They stalk you from the shadows now, trying to understand how you became so unreachable. They can't comprehend that walking away wasn't hard for you. Staying was. And the moment you realized that, everything shifted. Your goodbye wasn't emotional, it was logical. That's what crushed them the most. You gave them a chance to be something meaningful. You gave them the opportunity to rise. You gave them space to meet you at the level you stood on. But they chose to play shallow games. They chose to underestimate you. They chose to sabotage something that could have elevated them. And now they're stuck with the consequences they crafted themselves. What haunts them is not the loss, it's the realization that they were the forgettable one, that they were the placeholder, that they were the lesson, not the destiny. That you were the standard they'll spend the rest of their life trying to find in someone else. You didn't stay quiet because you were weak. You stayed quiet because you understood the consequences of letting your real self speak. Your silence wasn't surrender, it was restraint, a level of self-control they mistook for softness. They thought your calm was fear, your patience was hesitation, your quiet was uncertainty. But deep inside you were holding back something far more dangerous than any argument they could have thrown at you. They kept testing you because they believed silence meant they were winning. They didn't know you were measuring every word, weighing every reaction, deciding whether the situation deserved the version of you they wouldn't survive. You weren't ignoring their disrespect, you were analyzing it, understanding it, letting it expose them without needing to lift a single finger. That's the thing about monsters. The real ones don't roar immediately, they wait, they watch, they calculate. And you've always been the type who could destroy someone without raising your voice. But you didn't, because you knew the moment you unleashed what you were truly capable of, the entire dynamic would shift into something they couldn't handle. People forget that the strongest ones don't fight for every insult thrown at them. They choose their battles because they know their impact is permanent. They understood nothing about you when they assumed your silence was weakness. If anything, your quiet was the biggest warning they never recognized. You were protecting them from a version of yourself they've never met, the one that doesn't forgive, doesn't explain, doesn't go back and forth. The version that burns bridges without looking back. That doesn't give second chances. That cuts deep with truth sharper than any blade. You didn't unleash that version, not because you couldn't, but because they weren't worth the fallout. But disrespect accumulates. It piles up, layer after layer, until even the calmest soul turns cold. You absorbed more than they realized, not because you didn't feel it, but because you refused to give them the satisfaction of watching you break. You let them think they had power while secretly stripping them of every bit of it. A controlled monster is still a monster, and that scared you more than it scared them. Because you knew the moment you snapped there would be no sorry, no I didn't mean it, no coming back. They had no idea how close they were to being cut out of your life permanently. They played with fire, thinking it was warm, but they didn't understand you are capable of turning into the wildfire that leaves nothing standing. Your silence was your shield. It kept you in control and kept them unaware. They had no idea what you were holding back. They thought your calmness was ignorance, but it was discipline. If you had responded with the fire they provoked, the story would have ended far earlier and far uglier. There is power in not reacting, a power they underestimated, because your silence forced them to reveal who they were. They showed their insecurities, their entitlement, their lack of character, all without you having to expose a thing. You watched them dig their own grave with words they thought would bury you. Every time you stayed quiet, it wasn't because their disrespect didn't sting, it was because you chose to stay aligned with your own values. You knew you were too evolved to argue with people who thrive on chaos. You refused to step into the mud with them because you knew they were too comfortable living in it. You learned that silence can be the sharpest response. It can cut deeper than yelling ever could. It makes them question themselves, question their moves, question why you refused to give them the reaction they wanted. And eventually, your lack of response became the loudest message of all. Your silence didn't protect them from your anger, it protected them from your indifference. Because once you reached the point of not caring, the monster inside you didn't need to roar. It just needed to walk away, leaving them with the weight of their own behavior. People think they want honesty, but they're rarely ready for the raw truth you keep caged inside. You could have torn their ego apart with a single sentence. You could have exposed every flaw they try to hide. But you chose peace, not because they deserved it, but because you deserved better than wasting your energy. You weren't trying to save them from the monster, you were saving yourself from wasting time, dignity, and self-respect on someone who believed disrespecting you was entertainment. Staying silent allowed you to stay aligned with who you are, not who they tried to turn you into. Yet still, there came a moment when you realized silence wasn't enough. When you understood that controlling the monster wasn't the real challenge was choosing when to set yourself free from anyone who made you feel you needed to cage it. When you finally withdrew, it wasn't dramatic, it wasn't announced, it wasn't loud. You simply detached. And that detachment hit harder than any reaction ever would. Because people fear silence when they know they earned the storm that never came. They replay your quiet now, trying to decode it. They wonder why you didn't fight, why you didn't argue, why you didn't defend yourself. What they don't realize is that your silence was the closure. It was the end. It was the final straw wrapped in calmness. You outgrew the need to prove your worth. You outgrew the desire to explain yourself. You outgrew the urge to match disrespect with anger. Instead, you let your absence deliver the blow your words never needed to. And that's what terrified them in the end. Not the monster you kept inside, but the realization that they weren't even significant enough to awaken it. Your silence wasn't weakness, it was judgment, sentence, and consequence all wrapped into one. Now they sit with the emptiness they created, realizing that you didn't hold back because you were scared, you held back because they were insignificant to the version of you that knows its own power. They expected to break you. Instead, they revealed themselves. And the monster inside you? It didn't need to attack. It just needed to walk away. They never understood that silence is a language, one far more dangerous than anger. When you finally stopped reacting, they didn't feel relief, they felt fear. Because a quiet person isn't a defeated person. A quiet person is someone who has already made a decision. Your silence told them everything they needed to know. You were done entertaining what drained you, done absorbing disrespect, done pretending you didn't see their true colors. The shift in you was subtle but lethal. You didn't announce your boundaries, you enforced them. You didn't explain your exit, you executed it. You didn't announce your pain, you healed privately. And in that silence, they realized you were never the fragile soul they thought you were. You were a storm disguised as a breeze, a threat disguised as peace. They look back now and wonder when things changed. But the truth is, things changed the moment you realized disrespect didn't deserve a reaction. You realized your energy was too powerful to waste on anyone who couldn't value it. You realized you could end chapters without confrontation, without noise, without theatrics. Just silence and doors that would never open again. Silence made them see what they refused to acknowledge. That you weren't emotionally dependent on them, you weren't desperate for validation, and you weren't trapped in their chaos. You were watching them expose themselves piece by piece. You were learning their patterns, their intentions, their manipulations, and preparing to walk away long before they noticed the distance growing. When the disrespect kept coming, you didn't break, you didn't crumble, you evolved. You grew colder, wiser, sharper. You turned every wound into a warning, every disappointment into detachment. Your silence wasn't avoidance, it was transformation. It was the moment you shifted from trying to be understood to refusing to be disrespected. They expected a meltdown when you finally stood up for yourself. Instead, you gave them indifference, a weapon more brutal than any argument. Indifference freezes what anger burns. It leaves people confused, restless, haunted. They didn't expect you to reach that level of emotional clarity where you could shut a door and never look back. Your silence forced them to confront themselves, something they never wanted to do. Because once you stopped reacting, they could no longer blame you, distract themselves with drama, or control the narrative. They had to sit with their own actions, their own lies, their own decay. And that silence echoed louder than any truth you could have spoken. You created distance they never imagined you were capable of. They didn't know the silent version of you, the version that stopped explaining and started erasing. When you detach deeply. And once you're gone, you don't leave breadcrumbs, hints, or openings. Just the memory of someone they should have treated better. The monster inside you wasn't rage, it was discipline. The ability to stand still when provoked. The strength to stay silent when disrespected. The wisdom to know that your reaction could destroy someone, and the maturity to choose peace instead. They mistook that restraint for softness because they had never seen true strength before. They'll never admit it out loud, but every person they meet now gets compared to you. Every conversation, every glance, every moment is measured against the way you once made them feel. And every single time, reality disappoints them. Because the truth is simple. You were irreplaceable, and they never realized it until you were gone. They didn't understand your worth when you were right there, loving them effortlessly. They mistook your kindness for abundance, as if people like you grow on trees. They thought they could do better. They thought they could upgrade. But now they're learning the cruelest lesson of all: quality doesn't repeat. They didn't realize your presence was rare. Your empathy, your patience, your loyalty, those things don't come packaged in every new face they chase. Now, every time they try to connect with someone else, the emptiness reminds them of what they threw away. It's a curse they placed on themselves. They wander from person to person, searching for something familiar, something comforting, something powerful, but it never arrives. Because the spark they felt with you wasn't chemistry, it was alignment, destiny, divine timing, and they shattered it with their own hands. They thought moving on would be easy. They thought replacing you would be quick. But now they're drowning in the realization that what you offered came once in a lifetime. And the people they seek now can't even match your shadow. Your silence haunts them. Your absence exposes the cheapness of everything they're settling for now. They can't find your depth in shallow waters. They can't find your strength in fragile hearts. They can't find your authenticity in people who only pretend. You were the standard, and nothing they meet now even comes close. They scroll through contacts, through messages, through memories, hoping something will numb the ache, but nothing does. Because the standard you set wasn't emotional, it was spiritual. You touched places in them they didn't even know existed, and they'll spend years trying to fill those empty spaces. Every new conversation reminds them of your wit. Every argument reminds them of your honesty. Every silence reminds them of your peace. They try to replicate the bond, but all they're doing is chasing ghosts, you being the biggest one. They didn't appreciate how you understood them without explanation. They didn't appreciate how you forgave them before they even apologized. They didn't appreciate the way you knew their flaws and still chose them. Now they're encountering people who won't tolerate even a fraction of what you accepted. And reality hits them hard. You weren't demanding. You were balanced. You weren't clingy. You were loyal. You weren't soft. You were golden, and they treated gold like dust. Now they're left with hands full of sand. They can't replicate the comfort you provided. They can't recreate the peace you brought. They can't revive the magic you naturally radiated. And each disappointment feels like punishment for taking you for granted. Their ego dies a little each time they realize the people they chase now don't stay. They don't invest. They don't care the way you did, because what you brought to the table wasn't normal, it was exceptional. They thought they were the prize, the catch, the rare one. But losing you showed them the truth. You were the blessing. You were the shift. You were the upgrade. And now they're stuck with the uncomfortable knowledge that they fumbled something extraordinary. They remember the softness of your voice, the way you listened without judgment, the way you made them feel safe, and they know deep down they won't ever experience that combination again. That realization gnaws at them, day after day. They replay your laughter now, realizing how genuine it was. They replay your words, realizing how wise they were. They replay your loyalty, realizing how unwavering it was. And all they can do is wish they had treated you better when they had the chance. You set a bar they can't reach anymore. Not because others aren't good enough, but because the version of them who had access to you no longer exists. They burn that version trying to impress the wrong crowds. Every time they look into someone else's eyes, they search for your fire. Every time someone touches their hand, they look for your warmth. Every time they feel lonely, they crave your presence. But replacements don't heal regret. They're bumping into the consequences of mistaking your love for weakness. They're learning that strong souls don't beg, they move on. And once they move on, no force on earth can bring them back. They didn't just lose a person, they lost a future. Every road they walk now is haunted by the thought of what could have been if they had simply matured, cared, and chosen you properly. The thought follows them like a shadow that never fades. You were the one thing in their life that wasn't temporary. You were the one they could have built an entire world with. But they chose chaos, ego, pride, and now all they're left with is the ache of realizing that you were the safest place they ever had. Time will pass, years will shift, people will come and go, but the memory of you will stay carved into the back of their mind like a scar they gave themselves. They'll forget faces, forget names, forget moments, but they'll never forget you. Because you weren't just someone they loved. You were the standard, the blueprint, the bar no one else can reach. And that is the punishment life gives to those who mishandle rare souls. They will search for you in everyone, and never find you again. They didn't realize that once someone experiences a presence like yours, every connection after feels half awake. That's why they wander through people like someone flipping through static channels, waiting for a signal that feels like what you effortlessly were. But the truth is simple, they won't find it. Not because others aren't good enough, but because what you brought wasn't something that can be copied, mimicked, or manufactured. It was born from who you are, not from what you did. They replay your conversations in their mind now, trying to understand how you carried so much weight with so few words, how your silence said more than other people's paragraphs, how your presence felt like a mirror and a challenge at the same time. They didn't appreciate it when they had it because they assumed you'd always stay. But losing you taught them the language of emptiness, and its fluency they never wanted. They sit with the realization that they didn't upgrade when they left, you did. While they tried to find someone easier, more predictable, more bendable, you became someone stronger, colder, wiser. You grew in ways they'll never be able to understand. And now you're the version of yourself they always hoped you wouldn't become, the one who doesn't need them at all. Their mistake wasn't treating you badly. Their mistake was treating you badly while assuming you'd never change. They believed your kindness was dependence. They believed your patience was weakness. They believed your effort was lack of options. And now they're learning the most painful truth. You were never the one who needed them. They were the one who needed you. They scroll through people's faces, hoping something sparks the familiarity you once gave them without trying. But nothing lands. Nothing sticks. Nothing feels real. Because you weren't just a person, you were a standard, a level, a league they never earned but were lucky enough to touch. And now that you're gone, they walk through their days comparing everyone to a memory they ruined. They remember the way you made them feel seen, understood, valued, and challenged. They remember the way you encouraged their growth even when they didn't appreciate it. They remember the way you corrected them with respect, not humiliation. They remember the way you carried yourself with quiet strength. And now, they realize that those qualities aren't normal, they were rare, priceless, almost impossible to find again. They finally understand why people say you don't meet someone like that twice. Because someone like you isn't a coincidence, you're a turning point. And they treated a turning point like a temporary stop. That's why they're stuck now emotionally, mentally, spiritually, because the moment they mishandled you, their story stopped progressing. They replay the details of your presence like a movie they didn't know would become their favorite until it was too late. The way you listened, the way you spoke, the way you noticed things others always overlooked, the way you carried dignity even when disrespected, the way you never needed loudness to make an impact. They missed the subtlety of you, the depth of you, the steadiness of you. And the scariest part for them is knowing they'll never experience it again. Others come with noise, drama, insecurity, and expectations they can't meet. With you, everything felt elevated not because you tried, but because your energy carried a weight that commanded sincerity. They left thinking they'd find better. They come back realizing they'll only find busier, louder, needier, not better. Now they understand why your absence is louder than your presence ever had to be. Because when someone loses a standard, everything becomes a downgrade. And no matter who they date, who they chase, who they settle for, none of them can offer what you did. Authenticity without performance, depth without chaos, love without conditions. They waited for the explosion, the screaming, the breakdown, the chaos they swore would erupt the moment they pushed you too far. They stood there like spectators around a fuse they had lit, expecting the flames to dance exactly how they predicted. But the fire didn't rage. It went cold. And that silence, that was the first sign that their little script had failed. Because silence is not weakness. Silence is strategy. Silence is the sound you hear right before everything old collapses and something unrecognizable rises from the ashes. They thought the quiet meant you were done, but really, you were beginning. And nothing terrifies people more than the version of you they cannot read anymore. They expected tears, not calculation. They expected yelling, not composure. They expected you to break where they aimed, but all you did was stop bending. You didn't give them the chaos they craved. You gave them a calm that made them shift in their seats, questioning every assumption they ever made about you. Your silence became a mirror, and when they looked into it, they finally saw themselves the manipulation, the ego, the entitlement, the lies they wrapped in concern. They weren't ready for that reflection. They weren't ready to feel exposed by the very person they thought they could unmake. The quiet unsettled them in a way anger never could, because anger is predictable. Anger is loud. Anger gives them something to point at and say, "See? That's why." But silence steals their excuses. Silence forces them to confront the truth. The storm they expected never arrived because it outgrew them. Your silence became your crown, heavy, cold, earned. It was the moment you realized that some battles don't require swords, they require absence. Some wars are won by walking away, not by staying to prove what they already decided to misunderstand. And as you withdrew, they finally understood the weight of what they lost. Because your silence didn't just remove your voice, it removed your energy, your empathy, your willingness to justify yourself. You closed the doors they once slammed, you locked the windows they once rattled, and you left without giving them the satisfaction of a goodbye. The absence echoed louder than any meltdown could. It moved through their thoughts like a ghost they summoned, but couldn't exorcise. That quiet became a reminder of every chance they squandered, every moment they took for granted, every push they thought you'd always recover from. They thought distance would make you miss them, but it only made you see them clearly. They thought silence meant defeat, but it meant liberation. They thought the lack of reaction meant you were hurting, but it meant you were healing. You didn't choose silence to punish them. You chose it to protect yourself. The masterpiece wasn't for them, it was for you. It was your way of declaring, without a single word, that you no longer accept invitations to battles that drain you. And maybe that's what shocked them the most, that you could leave your entire history with them untouched, unburned, unannounced, and still walk out stronger. That you could stand still and let them watch you rise, without ever giving them the chance to interrupt it. Silence became your sentence, your shield, your final act of closure. It didn't scream, It didn't shatter. It simply ended. And in that ending, you carved your new beginning. They expected a meltdown. They expected chaos. They expected the version of you they knew, reactive, emotional, reachable. Instead, you gave them something they could never prepare for. A version of you who speaks only when necessary, who moves only with intention, who no longer wastes breath explaining storms to people who live in shallow puddles. And so the masterpiece stands cold, sharp, clean, not a picture of rage, but a portrait of evolution. Your silence didn't prove them right. It proved you outgrew the need to prove anything at all. They expected your silence to crack eventually like ice under pressure. They assumed it was temporary, a phase, a momentary pause before your real self returned to comfort their ego. But they underestimated the kind of transformation that happens when a person finally gets tired of carrying weight that was never theirs to hold. Your silence wasn't fragile, it was fortified. It was the boundary they never believed you'd build. They kept waiting for a message, a call, a slip-up, anything that proved you still cared enough to react. But the quiet stretched on like a horizon with no end, leaving them stranded in a landscape they created with their own behavior. And the longer they waited, the more the truth sank in. You were no longer orbiting around their existence. That was the part that truly unnerved them, realizing they no longer had access to the emotional version of you they took for granted. They never imagined your silence could teach them a lesson louder than your voice ever did. Because in that quiet, they found themselves replaying everything they said, everything they did, every moment they dismissed as not a big deal. Now it was a big deal. Now it echoed. Your stillness became a storm in their mind. They thought they had broken you when in reality they had freed you from explanations, freed you from cycles, freed you from holding on to connections that only tightened when they wanted control. Silence became your release, not your punishment. They tried to provoke you from afar, indirect hints, half-hearted apologies, dramatic displays meant to lure you back into conversation. But you didn't respond. You didn't fold. And that restraint shook them more than any outburst could. Because for the first time, they weren't managing your emotions, they were facing their own. Silence is a teacher. And when you went quiet, they finally met themselves in the aftermath. They faced the guilt they avoided. They faced the impact they minimized. They faced the loss they never thought possible. And in that confrontation, they realized the truth they always feared. They were replaceable in your story, but you were irreplaceable in theirs. Your silence wasn't cold, it was clean. It was clarity. It was the acknowledgement that not every connection deserves closure. Sometimes the exit itself is the closure. Sometimes the absence is the explanation. And sometimes walking away with nothing said is the most powerful thing you can do. They expected you to reach out for validation, reassurance, reconciliation, the things you once gave so freely. But the new you didn't operate on emotional charity. The new you understood the cost of giving your voice to people who weaponize your vulnerability, and so you stayed silent, not out of spite, but self-respect. And with every day that passed, they watched a door they once walked through so casually now sealed shut with a strength they didn't know you had. The quiet became a barrier. The barrier became a wall. And the wall became a reality they couldn't undo, no matter how loudly their ego screamed. Their pride wanted to believe you were playing a game. Their arrogance wanted to assume you'd eventually cave. But silence doesn't play games, it ends them. Silence doesn't seek attention, it rejects it. Silence doesn't negotiate, it decides. They never realized how much noise they brought into your life until you removed them. Their chaos didn't fit in your new atmosphere. Their excuses didn't match your new frequency. And so the distance grew not out of anger but evolution. The masterpiece of your silence became something they couldn't imitate, couldn't challenge, couldn't break, because it required a level of discipline, detachment, and inner strength that they simply never possessed. You didn't just withhold communication, you reclaimed your energy. And in that reclamation, You changed the entire dynamic. You shifted the power back into your hands without a single argument, without a single explanation, without a single moment of emotional theater. You won without lifting a finger. Silence made them realize your value in ways your presence never could. It made them see that your voice was a privilege, not a guarantee. It made them understand that your attention had weight, and losing it meant losing the version of you they assumed would stay forever. By the time they understood it, it was too late. The old version of you, the one who tolerated, explained, justified, endured, no longer existed. And the version standing in its place didn't speak unless it mattered. Your silence became your transformation. Their confusion became their consequence.